Marvel Studios is finally releasing Ironheart, and I got a chance to see the entire series early. Yes, 6 episodes, 3 episodes this week, 3 episodes next. This is my full season review with no spoilers. I think next week, once the series premieres, I will most likely do a spoiler review if the interest is there, but for the most part, I haven't been too excited about Ironheart. Not because I don't like the character. I actually really like the comic book character. And also Riri Williams, I thought had a good standout in Wakanda Forever. But this series has just been long in the making. Like, they filmed it forever ago. It's been delayed and delayed and delayed. The marketing's been lackluster. And not to say that the trailers were bad. I actually watched the trailer and I thought, oh, it's pretty cool. The poster, pretty cool. I like the idea of what they're doing with Ironheart because this series follows Riri Williams, who again is that genius inventor and that hero. And after the events of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, she returns to Chicago and confronts a conflict between technology and magic, becoming entangled with Parker Robbins, also known as the Hood, as she pursues her ambitions. Now, what I really liked about this series was that Riri Williams is joining a group of criminals to get to what she needs to do. And for me, I found that these difficult choices and interesting ideas that they were planning and touching on in the trailer made for something that I'm actually interested in seeing, how a hero, how someone who came from helping this entire issue in Wakanda can fall into those stakes. And I think for me, there are a lot of good elements to there in terms of story building and characters and specifically mythology in the MCU. But as a whole, I walked away from Ironheart going, that was fine. Which is really much how I felt with a lot of these Disney Plus series. I didn't feel anything mind-blowing besides like one specific element that I think a majority of people will talk about. Like I very much recommend that when the last 3 episodes come out, definitely watch those right away. Especially the last one. That's going to be the one that's going to be talked about a lot. It's the finale, for good or bad or for worse. What it introduces to the MCU is pretty interesting. But to get there, you got to look at the entire series as a whole. And while I'm appreciative that Marvel Studios did push out and give all 6 episodes, I think that helps because I'll be honest, if they had only given the first 2 or 3, I'd be sitting here telling you this is not a good series at all. Not a good series. But because they have given me the entire series, I can tell you that this is a fine series. This is a fine series that starts way too slow, very generic, and actually fleshes into something that has interesting ideas. But again, I walk away from the series and I'm like, this is like a 7 out of 10. This is a 7 out of 10 series, and that's kind of where I'm at. So definitely leave your thoughts down below. Are you excited for Ironheart? Are you not? Are you watching it this week? What are your thoughts? If you've seen those episodes, let me know down below. And without further ado, let's dive into this. So, number one thing I like talking about, if you follow my channel for a while, you know I like talking about the pros. And that's where I really want to start with this because Dominique Thorne, man, I thought she was again fantastic as Riri Williams. And I think there is a lot of great material for her to work through in here. And specifically, this is the Riri that I love from the comics and that we got a glimpse of in Wakanda Forever, but just get a little bit more here. And I think no matter the material, no matter what's given to her, she is elevating above all of that. And I thought she was fantastic in here. Again, Riri Williams is an interesting character through the whole story arc of what they give her in here. I'm excited to see where that goes. Anthony Ramos, though, for me, I think actually was the standout and stealing of this entire series. Now, again, nothing against Riri Williams, but the storyline that deals with Parker Robbins, the Hood, who I've never really cared for the character of the Hood. This is kind of like a Vulture situation where if you followed me for a while, you know that Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. But the Vulture is like the most lacking villain for me. I just never care for that villain. And what the MCU did with that, with what Michael Keaton did with that character, made me intrigued, made me really like him. Now, while Parker Robinson's motivations in here, I think are a little bit generic too, Anthony Ramos, the performance he gives, the mythology that they build around Parker Robbins, the Hood, the magic aspect of that, I think is kind of not, I don't want to say a game changer, but an interesting aspect and tidbit to the MCU that has only very much smallly been grabbed at. And for me personally, his entire storyline, a lot of his performance, a lot of that is the meat and potatoes of this series, and I think that works. Alden Ehrenreich as well, fantastic to see in here too. I'm hit or miss on some of the stuff they do with his character, but as a performance, does a really good job, and I think the rest of this really goes into that same way. Second, for a series that features someone having an Iron Man suit for the entire series, the visual effects in here are actually really damn good. You see it in the trailer, but after like She-Hulk, you kind of you never know how it's going to feel. And Ironheart definitely has the great visual effects for a TV show. There's certain aspects in there where it looks a little bit uncanny and you're like, it looks a little fake. But for me, I like the new suit that she has in here. I think it's awesome. I like to see the little upgrades to it from Wakanda Forever. I like this suit way more than Wakanda Forever. And I like the aspect and the direction that it ends up going in by the end with her character. And again, that suit. Visual effects across the board look good for that. And again, tying back into the magic aspect, I found that everything with Parker Robinson's visual effects also look freaking awesome. And the way that they use his powers, fantastic. Again, this is a character I've never cared about in the comics. Maybe not a lot of people do, but I've heard some good things that people really like about him, and I've just never really gotten the appeal. This version of the character feels very grounded, but at the same sense, like something familiar, and overall, I like that. And third, this is the thing that I really loved about Thunderbolts, and specifically, and I know not everyone liked Brave New World, but I did. But the thing I loved about Brave New World is how it started interconnecting things from the MCU. Once again, Thunderbolts kind of did the same thing. Ironheart does the same thing. They mention it feels like you actually do live in the world of the MCU. They mention certain specific locations that if you are a diehard fan, you're going to know what they're talking about. I kept saying it to my wife. I was like, oh, there's this, there's this, there's this. They mentioned this, and if you are someone that has watched Iron Man, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, like you've gone through all the layers, you've watched every single thing, you're going to know the specifics of what they're talking about. And while that may lose some people who are just trying to jump into the Marvel Studios brand, which I don't understand why you would start with Ironheart of all things, but there will be someone. I really like that it, again, just feels like a lived-in world, and I feel like the last 3 projects now, Thunderbolts, Brave New World, and this, all feel in that lived-in world. As much as I loved Born Again, didn't feel like the overall MCU. It felt like it was Daredevil, and that's fine. I didn't need to. But there are certain specific projects in the MCU that I wish would discuss and talk about certain events that have happened in the world or just certain locations so us fanboys can go like that. But it just, again, feels fleshed out and feels like something's there. So you got those 3 things really going for Ironheart. And for me, I feel like there's about 3 plot lines in here. There's plot line A with Riri Williams and something going on with a past friend and how that's kind of interconnecting with some of her family. And then that goes into plot line C, which is kind of like the whole background to that and how that's all working and against this secondary team, that this newfound family that she's kind of found through Parker Robinson's, which Parker Robinson and that team is completely part B for the storyline here. And this is where I jump in my mixed aspects. For me, everything that deals with the personal life of Parker Robinson's, everything that deals with the magical aspect of that, never for a second did it not feel more than what the MCU has given in terms of tonal-wise. And for me, when I look at all the MCU series that we've gotten in live action, Miss Marvel, a series that I really adore, is the one show that feels a little bit more for the kiddier side. And that's totally fine. I have no problems or issues with that at all. I think Miss Marvel is a really good series that's a little bit bogged down with just how many episodes we have. Ironheart's kind of a similar thing. Again, we'll talk about that in a second. But the hood aspect, I just found to be very locked in. Now, when it comes down to Riri's storyline, it feels in a couple different ways generic, seen before, and her character arc, for me, didn't really go anywhere or move the needle. By the end of the series, she's in the same place in some way, shape, and form that she was at the start, just for me, in a situation that arises what should be a second season or potentially just something else to continue that storyline. And again, while the mythology and certain things built up in there, which I really want to talk about, like, damn, they really went there with something and I freaking loved it. The aspect of that storyline, while again I like, it's the build up to that. The first 2 episodes of this series, I just found kind of to be boring and generic, and I was at like a 4 out of 10 for the series. I was like, I do not get the hype on this. Again, everything with Ramos I like, the performances are good, but damn, I don't know what you're doing with this storyline. Feels like we're just thrown into something going on, and that's kind of how some of these Disney Plus have felt. But like, what are we doing? And as the third episode hits, okay, I start to get kind of the feel of what they're doing. But the whole family aspect that they're doing with like the Hood's like crime group honestly feels a little kiddish, like on those aspects. Not when in terms of what they're doing, but just like the interactions. And for me, I just felt it be cheesy, very cheesy, and not able to grab my attention. And the same thing kind of goes for Riri's storyline. There's some hard-hitting things in there that I wish they would have explored a little bit harder. And then there's things in there where I'm like, it feels cheesy here. All these aspects kind of make for a mixed bag of a storyline in terms of the story. And that's where it's in my mixed aspects. There's things I really like. There's things I didn't like. I love the implications of what they ended up doing here. I love the new things that they add to the mythology of the MCU. But there's just a lot of like hit or miss aspects. And again, taking almost 3 episodes to get me locked in with what's finally happening, that's not good. That's what centers me into my issues with the series. And my biggest issue with the series is nothing really happens. Nothing happens with the character's arc. Nothing really happens with Anthony Ramos's arc. Nothing besides one awesome new mythologic thing to the MCU happens. This is a nothing. This is just something that it's cool. You get more time with Riri. You get, again, new introductions, but that's about it. And it feels like there should have been a more hard-hitting story here. It feels like there should have been more detail and more context to some of these characters and just more love that went into the series. And I know this was made before they started doing the quality over quantity type of stuff with Disney Plus. And I don't know if they just kind of said, okay, there's no really point in going back and trying to fix certain things here, but we'll just leave it as is and push it out. Again, I'm interested to see more of Riri's character in the end of the day, though. And I am interested to see the direction that they take it, specifically with what we see at the end of this. I just don't know where you put that storyline. Like, they're not going to do a season 2 of this. And if they just leave this lingering now, that's a little shocking and sad. But I don't know. And it's really hard to talk without getting into spoilers. So that's what's always tough doing these non-spoiler reactions. But I will say the series gets better as it goes on. The finale feels a little bit rushed, as typical most Disney Plus Marvel shows do. But I like the implications. There's some really good performances throughout here. The visual effects are good. The action, I'll give that. The action is really awesome. But there's a lot of cheesy, generic aspects that we've seen before. And I really just wanted a little bit more from Ironheart. I don't even know if a little bit more. I wanted a lot more from this series, personally. Again, the character is awesome in the comic books. And there's some cool twists and turns that they do with certain things from her character in there that I appreciated. Again, I'm excited to see what they do with her more, but Ironheart's like a right in the middle of the series, but it's a nothing series. If you didn't watch this, it's not going to change anything in the MCU. And if anything, you could get a recap of what's been happening in the series and literally just watch the final episode to get the one really cool tidbit of this all. And I'm not saying that the MCU needs like bomb drops like that in every show, but what it does need is something meaningful, something that latches me on and touches into a part of the story. And that's one thing that I can go back and like say about Agatha. Agatha was a series I didn't really care for the first 4 episodes. And then the last bit I freaking loved. That series for me didn't really give any big implications for the MCU. Yes, it introduced death. Yes, it has a really cool ending and specifically what it does with Agatha. But I mean, for me, it's also, again, a nothing. It's a nothing. But the story there, the emotional stuff, the character arc, all of that was fantastic in Agatha by the end. And there are certain series in the MCU where I can say that, yeah, it feels like nothing really happened, but the implications and specifically character arc stuff really add to these characters and it makes me interested. For here, I felt like nothing really happened with them, and I think Ironheart ends up being just one of those series. It's decent, it's not bad, but it's not one that I would like say you have to run out and watch, except for the final episode, which I'm really excited to talk about eventually. Not just because something is introduced, but because they finally do something. And I wish this would have gotten to that point a little bit faster. And I really wish this series, either the finale was like the 3rd episode and then we had like 3 episodes to keep moving along with the storyline, or the season was more episodes with a little bit more fleshed out stuff. There's a lot of different tidbits that, again, if I had spoilers and I could talk spoilers, I would definitely dive into. But since it's a non-spoiler review, those are my thoughts on Ironheart. And with all that said, I'm going to give season 1 a 7 out of 10. Almost a 6 out of 10, almost a 6.5, but there was still enough like goodies in there for me to go, okay, I liked it enough. But I think this is more for the hardcore fans of Marvel than anything else. But thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below your guys' thoughts. And, of course, until next time, stay classy.